The female employee accidentally broke the guest's bracelet. She hurriedly knelt down to pick up the scattered pearls. At that moment, the wealthy girl's diamond ring also fell to the ground. It rolled straight to rest in front of the employee's knees. She got up and looked up. Both of them were stunned. They looked exactly alike. Little did they know, this encounter would change the poor girl's fate. She rushed to the hospital to visit her hospitalized father. She couldn't help but ask her mother if she had a twin sister. But her mother scolded her for wasting time on meaningless thoughts. Instead, she should think about how to raise money for her father's medical bills. The 3,000 monthly salary made it difficult for Jishio. Just then, she received an invitation to a class reunion. She thought she could borrow some money from her old classmates. However, when she arrived at the reunion, no one wanted to talk to her. At this moment, 3 wealthy classmates approached her with a bet. They said if she could finish a bottle of red wine in one go, they would give her 3,000 to pay for her father's treatment. She immediately agreed. Unexpectedly, by the time she finished the whole bottle of red wine, the scheming girl only gave her $3, and even mocked her for going crazy over money. A rich classmate couldn't stand it, and took Jishio's hand to leave. Unexpectedly, he was no good either. He ended up taking Jishio to a hotel. Furious, Jishio pushed him down forcefully, telling him she wasn't an easy woman. The embarrassed rich kid threw down a bundle of cash, and tell Jishio to come find him if she wants more money. Despite the humiliation, she picked up the money from the ground. Stubbornly, she said she would pay it back. The rich kid scoffed and walked away. Jishio drank alone at a street stall to drown her sorrows. She stumbled through the streets, drunk. She was seen by the wealthy young man Jishuan. He mistakenly thought she was his fiancée, Xiaoai. He questioned why she was wearing such shabby clothes. Drunk Jishio thought he was trying to seduce her. He said to let him handle it and then fell asleep. At first, Jishuan wanted to just walk away. But thinking of tomorrow's headlines causing the stock price to plummet, and the disdainful looks from passers-by, made him settle Jishio in a hotel first. But as soon as he entered, she threw up all over him. Jishuan, who has a severe germaphobe, ran into the bathroom while undressing. He wished he could scrub his skin off. At that moment, Jishio rushed into the bathroom to continue throwing up. She picked up the money that fell and put it in his robe's pocket. She hugged the toilet and continued sleeping. Unexpectedly, Jishuan wore the bathrobe home. The servants at home were puzzled. Meanwhile, the rich girl Xiaoai was reading a magazine. It said that if 2 identical people meet, the first to see the other would die. However, Xiaoai clearly did not take it seriously. At that moment, a person appeared. From shoes to clothes, everything looked like Xiaoai's. But when she saw her face, she realized it was just a coincidence. The rather unattractive one looked very embarrassed. Early the next morning, Jishio slowly woke up from the toilet seat. Recalling last night's events left her confused. She noticed the money was gone and searched everywhere, but she only found a business card left by Jishuan. When she checked the time, it was already 9 o'clock. She had to hurry back to work. Meanwhile, the servant at Jishuan's house just found a bundle of cash in the bathrobe. Just then, it was spotted by the son-in-law Biao. He took the money, said that he would give it to Jishuan. At this moment, Jishuan and Xiaoai were discussing their wedding. However, they found that her knee was perfectly fine. Clearly, it had been scraped and bleeding last night. He was about to check, but was swatted away by Xiaoai. She warned Jishuan that they were just contract spouses for a family alliance. Meanwhile, Jishuan's sister was raging at Biao inside the house. This was because her brother would gain 10% of the company's shares upon marriage. This made her feel very unfair. Suddenly, a scream came from outside. Biao rushed out to check. He saw Jishuan lying on the ground in a daze. Meanwhile, Xiaoai fell into the water, unconscious. After emergency treatment, the doctor diagnosed Xiaoai as being in a vegetative state. But Biao warned the doctor not to leak this information. He recalled what Xiaoai had told him before. She saw someone who looked just like her in the mall, so Biao went to Jishio to confirm, to have her take the place of the vegetative Xiaoai. From now on, she can live a rich and luxurious life. Unexpectedly, she refused to pretend to be a wealthy girl. Biao reminded her of handle her father's debts. Jishio returned home to find the store vandalized by thugs, so he went to the gang boss to pay back the interest first. To his surprise, the boss raised the price and demanded double. Meanwhile, an uncle on the ground took the chance to ambush the gang boss. Unexpectedly, the boss easily countered the attack. As a result, he accidentally killed the uncle with too much force. They had no choice but to take Jishio to dispose of the body. Suddenly, the uncle in the trunk woke up and screamed for help. They got out of the car, ready to silence him. Jishio took the opportunity to climb into the driver's seat and escape. To avoid the deer on the road, the car plunged straight into the cliff. Fortunately, the car was caught by a cable and hung in midair. At that moment, Biao called. He had been following Jishio. He said he would save her if she agreed to collaborate. The cable was constantly fraying. In an urgent situation, Jishio had to agree. Just then, the car suddenly fell into the sea and sank. When Jishio woke up, she was already in the hospital. Biao beside her immediately urged her to write something down. He said she fell into the swimming pool, and the injury caused her amnesia. Just as he finished speaking, her parents who rushed back from abroad came to visit her. Fearing to give herself away, Jishio didn't dare to speak. Her father, a counselor, told her to take good care of herself, and he would arrange the best medical care for her. Then he flew abroad. Biao ordered his men to pull the unconscious Xiuai out from under the bed. Jishio was so scared she almost screamed. At that moment, she realized she was caught in a conspiracy. So she pretended to feel unwell and ran to the bathroom. She wanted to borrow a phone for help, but passers-by ignored her. She had no choice but to drink the cosmetics left by someone. After coming out, she knelt on the ground and vomited continuously. Biao had to let her stay in the hospital for observation. He took out her blood-stained keys and a handwritten letter. He said the uncle who fell into the sea with her had drowned. These two pieces of evidence are enough to make Jishio a murderer. Let her make her own choice. Then he took the unconscious Xiuai to the edge of the cliff. He took off the necklace from her neck and cried silently. It turned out that they were already in a relationship, but for the plan, he had no choice but to heartlessly throw her off the cliff. Meanwhile, Jishuan was trying to regain his memories from before he fainted. He sought a professional psychologist for hypnosis. He discovered that he had choked Xiuai with a bag. After struggling to escape, she fell into the pool. The doctor quickly woke Jishuan when things went wrong. When he woke up, he couldn't believe he did that. So he wanted to ask Xiuai for confirmation. At the hospital, he learned she had lost her memory. He dismissed Biao and woke Xiuai. In a breakdown, he asked what happened that day. Fortunately, Biao showed up in time and let Jishuan leave. That night, he took Jishio back to the rich girl's house. He looked at the photo of Xiuai, who looked just like her. Seeing the luxurious mansion in front of her, and the luxury items throughout the house, she couldn't help but sigh at the differing fates despite similar appearances. Then Biao took out the rich girl's profile and told her to memorize it. Before leaving, he instructed his men to keep an eye on her. However, Xiuai refused to be alone with a stranger. This made Biao instantly furious. He grabbed his handbag and threatened her by choking her. "Without me, you would already be dead. You are alive because of me. If you want to become Jishio again, you might as well die. If you become Xiuai, I'll let you go." But he still had his men guard the entrance downstairs. In the middle of the night, Jishio climbed down from the balcony while he wasn't paying attention. She went to the police station intending to ask for help, but she was bumped into from behind. It was Biao, the lawyer, who came upon hearing the news. The evidence that falsely accused Jishio of murder was lying on the ground. She handed it to Biao with trembling hands. She saw how respectful the police chief was towards him, just because he is the son-in-law of the Sun Group. Jishio knows she can't compete with him. She returned home distraught. She ran into the persistent Jishuan downstairs. He needs to check if there are marks on Xiuai's neck. He yanked her scarf off. He was shocked when he saw the marks. He finally confirmed that he was responsible for Xiuai falling into the pool. He helped her put the scarf back on. He sincerely apologized and then left. On the other side, Jishio's family went to the police station to report. They said their daughter had been missing all night. So the police took them to the morgue for identification. When they saw their daughter, the whole family collapsed. The mother was in tears. Seeing the news about herself killing the creditor with a key, and then committing suicide out of guilt, Jishio realized there was no turning back. From now on, she is the wealthy girl, Xiuai. Soon it was the day the two families would officially meet. Xiuai had never tasted such fine red wine. After finishing one cup, she poured another. This action made everyone find her peculiar. Fortunately, her father stepped in to help her out. He said his daughter's memory had improved quite a bit. She should recover fully in time. Jishuan glanced at Xiuai's neck. Suddenly, he proposed to break off the engagement. His father was furious upon hearing this. Warn him that if he steps out, it will mean cutting off their father-son relationship. Then ask Xiuai about her willingness to marry. Swayed by thoughts, Xiuai decides to live masked. She agreed to the marriage. After dinner, Jishuan finds Xiuai. Suddenly, he pushes her down onto the chair. He warns her not to show up at tomorrow's wedding, otherwise, she'll pay with her life. The wedding takes place as scheduled the next day. Xiuai, who was backstage getting ready, saw a happy mother and daughter nearby. She suddenly thought of her own mother. Unable to resist, she dialed her mother to hear her voice, but her aunt answered the call. It turned out that today was Jishio's funeral. Hearing her mother's heartbreaking cries, Xiuai hung up and rushed out. She arrived at the funeral site. She was about to rush up and reveal her identity, but she was stopped by Biao, who had just arrived. He warned her to consider the consequences of revealing her identity. After saying that, he turned and left. When she saw the gang leader take the condolence money to pay off debts, she hesitated. To pay off her father's debts, Xiaowai had no choice but to return to the wedding with Biao. Jixuan could only go through with the wedding with her. The two of them returned home. Xiaowai was astonished by the luxurious villa before her. On her wedding day, Xiaowai just lay down on the bed for a moment. Jixuan had the maid change the bedding to a brand new set. She even made a deal with Xiaowai. Xiaowai could only sleep on the sofa, and she wasn't allowed to make noise or rummage through things. Most importantly, she couldn't go into the small room upstairs. In return, Xiaowai could continue dating her beloved, as long as it wasn't discovered. Confused, Xiaowai could only agree silently. The next day at breakfast, her father-in-law transferred Jixuan back to the head office. Xiaowai also started working at her mother-in-law's gallery. Even the sister-in-law's objections were ignored by the old man. Xiaowai asked Biao who her secret boyfriend was. This left him at a loss for words. Fortunately, Jixuan showed up just in time. He took her to the marriage registry to get the certificate. While signing, Xiaowai instinctively wrote her old name. Realizing it, she quickly crossed it out. She rewrote her name as Xiaowai. When she arrived at the gallery, she happened to run into her father's friend, the mayor's wife. Not knowing the situation, Xiaowai could only chat vaguely for a bit. Unexpectedly, the scheming mother-in-law asked her to take the lady shopping at their mall. Xiaowai was startled upon hearing this, because that mall was where she used to work. She would definitely run into her former colleagues, so she made an excuse to decline. However, under her mother-in-law's strong insistence, she had to agree. Biao rushed over as soon as he found out. Meanwhile, the mall, notified of the situation, had already begun to clear out. All the staff were waiting at the door for the big shot. Sure enough, her colleague was startled to see Xiaowai. When they arrived at the women's section, the lady took off Xiaowai's sunglasses, revealing her true self. But her colleague didn't suspect anything after seeing this. This was because some colleague had met the real Xiaowai before. It's also an undeniable fact that Jixuan has passed away. Biao, who rushed over, felt relieved when no one noticed. The father-in-law learned that Xiaowai had really pleased the mayor's wife. He took the opportunity to invite the mayor to his house for cooperation talks tomorrow. She praised Xiaowai in front of everyone. The scheming mother-in-law didn't expect Xiaowai to dealt the difficult lady. She couldn't help but mock her. Xiaowai returned to her room, looking at a pile of luxury items. She sighed, envying the life of the rich. She casually checked her brother's social media account. Only then did she realize it was her mother's birthday. So she grabbed a gift bag and sneaked out. She looked at her family's restaurant from a distance. She planned to secretly leave the gift at the door. Suddenly, a hand grabbed her. Biao warned her, if she truly loves her family, wants them to live a good life, just completely forget about them. Xiaowai hopes Biao keeps his promise and takes care of her family, but Biao said it's up to her. At that moment, Xiaowai heard her father answering phone in the room. She learned her mother has been missing since the funeral. They still haven't found her. To prevent Xiaowai from acting impulsively, Biao offers to help her find her mother. The next morning, Xiaowai hurriedly found Biao to ask about his mother's whereabouts, because Xiaowai needs to intervene to stop the investment agreement signed with the mayor today. So Biao deliberately claimed he found Xiaowai's missing mother. But when Xiaowai secretly called home, he heard his father anxiously asking about his mother. Xiaowai realized he had been tricked. Furious, she went to find Biao. Without saying a word, she slapped him. This left Biao stunned. Ignoring any opposition, Xiaowai went to find her mother herself. Biao followed her and called Xiaowai. He told her it was still not too late to go back. But Xiaowai couldn't care less. Angrily, Biao erupted on the spot. He floored the accelerator and crashed into her. He also wanted to overtake and stop her car. At that moment, a truck came from the opposite direction. Startled, he swerved off the road to avoid a collision. However, he was seriously injured. Xiaowai had to stop the car upon seeing this. He dragged Biao out of the car. Even so, he was still threatening Xiaowai for not hanging up the call. Xiaowai called an ambulance for him and left. She came near home to look for his mother. At that moment, Biao's men drove towards Xiaowai. Fortunately, Jixuan arrived just in time. He rushed over and pushed Xiaowai to the side of the road. He watched the petals falling from the sky. Xiaowai suddenly thought about where her mother was. She immediately asked Jixuan for help. So, he used his connections to call a lot of police to search the mountain. Xiaowai found the approximate location based on her childhood memories. Sure enough, she found her mother's shoes. Xiaowai also found her unconscious mother nearby. She hugged her and cried. This made Jixuan feel Xiaowai's true emotions for the first time. An ambulance urgently took her mother away. Suddenly, a man dashed out onto the road and got hit. It turned out to be Xiaowai's brother and father. Fortunately, there was no major problem. Suddenly, the brother glanced inside the car. Startled, Xiaoai quickly hid. Just as the brother was about to open the door to check, their father stopped him. He said their mother was on her way to the hospital. He told them to hurry there. Thus, Xiaoai avoided exposed. Meanwhile, Diao woke up in the hospital to find his wife sitting by the bed. She already noticed the relationship between Diao and Xiaoai. Facing his wife's questions, Diao's lies and excuses were not accepted. He had to use a strategy of retreating to advance. Since I didn't bring anything when I came, I won't take anything when I leave. Just as he was about to leave, his wife suddenly pulled him back. The scoundrel Biao couldn't help but smile slightly. Meanwhile, Xiaoai left when she saw her mother was fine. She found out the signing ceremony was cancelled when she got home. Diao had informed the merchants about the demolition in advance. Many merchants protested out of fear of losing their jobs. This forced the mayor to revisit the reconstruction plan for Jixuan. Xiaoai, coming from a poor background, understood the people's concerns. So she took Jixuan to experience life in a traditional market. Watching Xiaoai skillfully bargain with the vendors, it felt like she was finally being her true self. She was no longer the rich girl who only cared about money. When they arrived at a restaurant to eat, unexpectedly, the merchant representative found Jixuan. Xiaoai immediately pulled him away from the scene. The merchants arriving on the news attacked them. Like a rat crossing the street, everyone wanted to hit them. At this moment, Biao's henchman made a call. A group of hat-wearing men appeared with clubs. They started to smash the stall. Xiaoai recalled the helplessness when thugs disrupted her restaurant. Ignoring her own safety, she rushed forward to stop them. Just as the thug ignored her and aimed to strike her, Jixuan showed up just in time. Jixuan reveals his identity as a chaebol son. The thugs flee in panic. The forced eviction made the old man doubt Jixuan's abilities. The corporate director incites Jixuan to bribe. He is to give the money to the mayor at tomorrow's opening ceremony. Little do they know, Biao has already tipped off the prosecutor and the press. They are prepared to catch him red-handed. That night, Jixuan finds it hard to sleep. Xiaoai notices his shoulder is bleeding. She rushes over, worried and eager to help, but Jixuan stopped her from getting too close. Xiaoai noticed he was in a bad mood. She knew he was worried about the reconstruction plan. She encouraged him to follow his heart. Jixuan entered the secret room to pack the money. He needed to secure this project to prove himself. He came out to find Xiaoai sleeping like a log. Unusually, he carried her to bed. Before the opening ceremony the next day, a group of prosecutors and reporters suddenly appeared. They rushed directly into the hotel parking garage. At this moment, his men had just placed the box in the mayor's car. A group of prosecutors appeared and surrounded the two. But when they opened the box, they found it was just ordinary apples. Meanwhile, Diao couldn't help but laugh. He was shocked when he heard the old chairman announce the redevelopment project was signed. Jixuan appeared on stage, full of energy. He plans to preserve the culture and products of traditional markets, and merge with modern shopping centers for mutual development. This unique speech won applause from the audience. But it made Biao very angry. To show they're a loving couple and stabilize the stock price, Jixuan took the initiative to invite Xiaoai to dance. But coming from a poor background, she couldn't dance. She could only follow Jixuan's lead. At that moment, Jixio's brother suddenly appeared. Biao couldn't stay calm anymore. Xiaoai tried to avoid revealing her identity. She had to pretend not to know. Watching her brother being dragged away, she felt very upset. The sister-in-law, who already disliked Xiaoai, said she would help her find out the man's identity. In fact, she wanted to expose Xiaoai's scandals. Xiaoai returned to the gallery. On her first day, Mei Yan assigned her to clean the restroom, and she sarcastically said the family doesn't raise useless people. This scene was just seen by Xiaoai's brother. He smartly chose to avoid it. Zihao was stopped by his sister-in-law. She asked about his relationship with Xiaoai, but Zihao was clever, didn't answer. He thought his sister had her reasons for not acknowledging him. Meanwhile, Jixuan rushed to the gallery after hearing the news. However, Xiaoai continued to scrub the toilet. Jixuan grabbed her. He threw the toilet brush down forcefully. In anger and concern, he questioned why she did this work. He wondered how the world would see him as her husband. Let her stop coming to work. Seeing her looking gloomy during lunch, Jixuan thought it was because of the man from yesterday. Xiaoai tried to hide her identity. She had to admit it was her beloved. Jixuan felt a bit uncomfortable after hearing that. Xiaoai told Biao she would inform her brother. However, Biao tossed out some documents. She pressed Xiaoai's head to make her see clearly. It turned out the scheming mother-in-law had been investigating Xiaoai. If he hadn't received the news early, her identity would have been exposed long ago. Biao urged her to make a break with her brother, or else he would secretly kill her brother. Left with no choice, Xiaoai had to comply. Zihao wanted to acknowledge Xiaoai as his sister, but Xiaoai presented a paternity test, claiming she just looked like his sister. but they had no blood relation. Then she tossed out a check for 100 million. Told Jiha not to bother her anymore. Unexpectedly, the brother tore up the check. He said he wouldn't take money from who was not his sister. Biao watched the scene from the corner. He doesn't know if his decision was right or wrong. During the interview, Xiuai and Jixuan, they just forced smiles to show their affection. In the end, she couldn't handle the pressure and left. Jixuan rushed out to stop Xiuai. He told the secretary to stop the interview. Xiuai felt depressed, so he took her somewhere. They arrived at a remote cemetery. Jixuan introduced her daughter-in-law to her mother. Then, he asked when Xiuai's mother passed away. Xiuai made an excuse to leave, fearing she'd slip up. She went to the riverbank and looked at her ring. She thought her mother would surely show it off. She intended to take off the ring to admire it, but she accidentally dropped it in the water. She hurriedly took off her shoes and went into the water to look. At that moment, Jixuan arrived by the river and saw the scene. She recalled the earlier scene of Xiuai drowning. With a worried look, he urged her to come up first. He promised to buy her a new ring, but Xiuai insisted on searching. When she found the ring and was about to come ashore, she slipped and fell completely into the water. Jixuan rushed over and grabbed Xiuai, but the ring fell into the water again and disappeared. Jixuan angrily scolded her. Xiuai said sadly, "But that's my wedding ring." On their way back, the car suddenly broke down. Jixuan checked and found the car had been tampered with. In the remote mountains, there was no phone signal. They decided to walk to a place with signal. Jixuan noticed Xiuai's clothes were dripping. He suggested wringing out her clothes behind the stone pile before putting them on. When she came out, he found her lips were blue from the cold. Her body was still trembling a bit. He decided to go back to the car to warm up first. Xiuai in the car was shivering from the cold. In the end, she fainted. On the other side, the sister-in-law was happily feasting on fish and meat. She deliberately told Biao that she tampered with the brother's car. This gave him a chance to be alone with Xiuai in the mountains. Biao hurriedly tried to call both of them but couldn't get through. Without a second thought, he headed out to look for them. Actually, his sister-in-law was testing Biao's reaction. By the time Biao arrived, he found the two of them cuddling naked. He remembered he had told Xiuai to get physically close to Jixuan quickly. That way, she could gain his trust. Biao didn't expect things to escalate so quickly. Yet, he felt a sense of jealousy inside. He had even installed a camera in Jixuan's room to catch Jixuan's weakness and bring him down. Taking advantage of his moment going downstairs, Biao sneaks into Jixuan's room. He praises Xiuai for her seductive skills. He warns her that if it weren't for his manipulation, she would still just be a salesperson. He reminds her not to forget her identity. Then, he gives her some money to clear her father's debts. For her father, Xiuai has to endure silently. Until nightfall, Jixuan felt that Xiuai's body had not fully recovered, so he asked her to sleep on the bed. What Xiuai didn't expect was that he meant to sleep together. But Xiuai felt it would be inconvenient. She suggested buying another bed tomorrow. Jixuan reluctantly said he would endure for one night, and simply fell asleep. In the middle of the night, Jixuan woke up and thoughtfully covered the quilt for her. Suddenly, he hugged Xiuai who was about to fall off the bed. Let her sleep a bit inside. Jixuan also realized he's falling for her. This scene worried Biao in front of the monitor. The next morning, the two went to the mall to choose a bed, but Jixuan was very picky. He either complained the color was too flashy, or said he was allergic to the wood. They looked through the entire mall but couldn't decide, so they decided to have lunch first. Xiuai is still complaining about sleeping in the same bed. Jixuan angrily said he didn't want to share a bed with her either. But what would their family think if they slept separately? What if rumors of marital issues caused the company's stock to drop? Who will take responsibility for that? Xiuai had no choice but to agree. Just as she was going to the bathroom, she coincidentally ran into the rich kid Zhengtai who once humiliated her with money. Xiuai said he had mistaken her for someone else, but Zhengtai refused to let her go. He also touched her inappropriately. Xiuai was so scared that she quickly ran away, and Jixuan happened to see this scene. It turned out that Zhengtai came to discuss a collaboration with Jixuan. He took out a box of money to secure the construction rights for the shopping center's reconstruction. But Jixuan had already investigated his company. Their cost-cutting issues are well known in the industry. Plus, he just flirted Jixuan's wife. He told Zhengtai that he had blacklisted their company. So Zhengtai came to find Biao, wanted to ask what his brother-in-law likes. He thought he wasn't interested in money. He casually mentioned Xiuai. She was an old classmate of his. It's just strange that she borrowed money at a reunion recently. Now she has transformed into a wealthy heiress. Biao looked tense after hearing this. To prevent Xiuai's identity from being exposed, Biao felt a murderous intent. He tied a belt around his hand, Just as they were about to act, a car suddenly appeared. Biao had to hold back for now. On the other side, unable to sleep, Xiuai suggested having a drink with Jixuan. After spending some time together, the two had come to understand each other better. Xiuai shared her recent troubles. Seeing the pitiful Xiuai, Jixuan embraced her, telling her she could cry on his shoulder anytime. Xiuai feels Jixuan's love for her. She doesn't want to keep deceiving Jixuan. She plans to reveal her true identity. Fortunately, Biao appears just in time to intervene. He finds an excuse to take Xiuai away. He says his father was injured at work when he was 9 but received no compensation. He protests on the rooftop but accidentally falls. From that moment, he understands. Only those at the top have a voice. He tells Xiuai he can do anything to achieve his goals. Let her think about her family's safety. Early the next morning, her father-in-law suggested that Xiuai work at the headquarters. Working in Jixuan's department would provide some support. However, to avoid suspicion, Xiuai was told to disguise her identity and start from the bottom. The scheming mother-in-law wanted her daughter to move to the headquarters as well. She wanted to start from a management position, but the father treated them equally and assigned Mei Yan to a basic position. This didn't matter to Mei Yan. It was just changing places to continue passing time. She makes even the older employees feel she has strong support. When asked Xiuai, she had to pretend she didn't know. At that moment, Zheng Tai showed up at the company looking for Jixuan. Xiuai was scared and hid under the table. She took the chance to run out and catch the elevator to leave. Unexpectedly, Zheng Tai followed her in. A colleague even called out her name. Xiuai had no choice but to flee in panic. Zheng Tai began to suspect her identity. He quickly found Biao. Said he discovered Jixuan's wife had swapped identities with his classmate. Told Biao to find the evidence. After speaking, handed him a box of money. To stabilize Zheng Tai, Biao pretended to cooperate and told him not to leak it. Thought this person must not be alive. The next day, had his men drug the beer at Zheng Tai's house. Then went to his house to discuss plans. But Biao was just stalling, waiting for Zheng Tai to finish a few cans of beer. The drug kicked in and knocked him out. Biao put on gloves and gave another shot. Meanwhile, the gang leader found Jiha. He said he just needed one person assassinated, then he would wipe out their debts, and give them an extra 200 million as a reward. But Jiha ultimately declined. However, upon returning, he found his mother had late-stage liver cancer. He urgently needed a large sum for treatment. He tried to meet Xiuai but was coldly rejected. He had to find the gang leader again to take on the job. Leave the address for Xiuai before setting off. He said if she was his sister, she would stop him from making mistakes. When Xiuai received the message, he called back immediately, but his brother's phone was dead. He used his key card to open the door. At that moment, the target was slumped on the couch. Unbeknownst to him, the target was already dead. Just as he was about to act, Kind Jiha still chose to give up. At the same time, the gang leader is reporting to Biao. They learned they would kill Jiha when he comes out. Unbeknownst to them, Xiuai overheard their conversation. Just then, the brother came down ready to get in the car. Xiuai disregarded the risk of being exposed. He jumped out and shouted for his brother to run. Xiuai learned that his mother was seriously ill. She quickly took out some money to help his brother. Didn't expect him to just throw the money away. He said he didn't come for the money, but he hopes his sister will go back to see their mother. But Xiuai is also helpless. The next day, Biao took out a syringe with his brother's fingerprints. He threatened Xiuai to remove Jixuan as manager in 3 days. Otherwise, he would hand the evidence to the police. This left Xiuai at a loss. Jixuan noticed his distracted wife. He seized the chance to take Xiuai out of the office. The two went to a park to relax. Over time, he discovered Xiuai had many secrets. Still, he chose to trust her. Xiuai promised to reveal everything when the time was right. If Jixuan's heart remains as it is now, maybe they could genuinely be together. They had just returned to the office when the gang leader approached Xiuai alone. He demanded she provide 300 million to save her brother. But Xiuai's account was frozen by Biao. She had to ask Jixuan for a loan. Without a second thought, Jixuan went to the bank and withdrew 300 million in cash. Just as he was about to give the money to Xiuai, the waiting prosecutor surrounded Jixuan. Seeing the cash in the bag, they took him away for accepting a bribe. In no time, Biao appeared as Jixuan's lawyer, easily getting Jixuan released. And all of this was orchestrated by him behind the scenes. As expected, after returning home, the old chairman scolded Jixuan. Biao found Xiuai. He asked her to put a book in Jixuan's secret room. The next day, Xiuai went to Jixuan's office to take the key. She opened the secret room upstairs. Before leaving, Xiuai checked the books and found a construction contract signed with Zheng Tai. And a check. To her surprise, Biao wanted Jishuan to go to jail. At that moment, the sound of a door opening came. She quickly put the documents in her pocket. She ran out of the secret room and bumped into Jishuan. He questioned Xiuai about how she got in. Xiuai had to lie that the door was open when she returned. Jishuan naturally did not believe her. He turned and found the maid cleaning the room. Surprisingly, the maid also said the door was open. Jishuan rushed back to the office to check the safe. Unbeknownst to him, the key had already been returned by Biao's men. Moreover, the maid at home had also been bribed by Biao. She was putting some drugs into Jishuan's usual drinking water, make him hallucinate and have nightmares. Awakened by a dream of choking Xiuai, he accidentally knocked over the vase on the table, alarmed the whole family to come in and check. Xiuai said it was caused by a bug. However, Grandpa knew Jishuan's condition had flared up again. So he consulted a psychiatrist to understand the situation. The doctor advised Jishuan to be hospitalized immediately. Otherwise, it could lead to an irreversible situation. Before leaving, he reminded Xiuai to ensure Jishuan took his medication on time. As soon as Jishuan returned to the office, he started having an episode. Xiuai noticed he seemed disoriented. She hurriedly took Jishuan home to rest, but as soon as they arrived at the door, a group of prosecutors is about to conduct a surprise inspection. Xiuai hurriedly ran back to the room. She took out the contract from the wardrobe and tore it up. At that moment, a group of people burst into the room. They headed straight for Jishuan's secret room. After pretending to search, they approached the book Xiuai had placed there. They used a knife to open the book's hidden compartment. To their surprise, they found a large bag of white powder inside. Xiuai looked utterly incredulous. Biao looked at Xiuai smugly. Fortunately, it was just some sleeping pill powder, but the president was more worried about Jishuan's mental state. So, a temporary shareholders meeting was called to vote whether Jishuan could continue as general manager. Just then, Xiuai, a junior employee, unexpectedly burst into the meeting room. She even revealed her identity as the general manager's wife. This surprised her colleagues. She claimed that the sleeping pills found in the room were hers. And let everyone consider the consequences if Jishuan is dismissed due to misinformation. It will definitely cause the company's stock price to plummet. This is what saved Jishuan's position as general manager. Biao was furious. He took the opportunity to find Xiuai. He questioned her if she considered the consequences of disobedience. However, this time, Xiuai didn't indulge him. She told him that her life is her own to manage. She took out a USB drive for Biao. She asked him to consider whether to unfreeze Xiuai's account. Biao opened the video. It turned out to be footage of him killing Zheng Tai. Angrily, he smashed the USB drive to the ground. He stomped hard to vent his anger. Reluctantly, he ordered his men to unfreeze all of Xiuai's accounts. Xiuai had overheard someone discussing Zheng Tai's case before. She suspected it was revenge for secretly recording women's video at home, so she sneaked into Zheng Tai's home to search. Indeed, she found a camera watch hidden in a vase. This was the evidence of Biao's crime. She immediately withdrew a large amount of cash from the bank. She paid off all the debts at once. She even paid the gang leader to kneel and apologize to her family. However, the gang leader wasn't satisfied after receiving the money. He wanted to find out the mastermind behind Xiuai's disguise. He aimed to gain even greater profits from it. So the two followed Xiuai all the way to the company. At this time, she was having a secret meeting with Biao. She demanded that he stop harassing her family, and she insisted he couldn't continue framing Jishuan as a condition. They made a deal. Xiuai handed the watch to him. As Biao was about to leave with the watch, the fire alarm suddenly went off. The gang leader took the chance to grab Biao's watch, but he was taken down by his subordinate with a throw. Meanwhile, someone quietly picked up the watch. Later, at dinner, Biao found that the watch was in his wife's possession. He had no choice but to come clean to her. He said he planned to destroy the video and forget the past. If Mei Yan wants to stay with him, then she should not open the video but destroy it. Then he left the room for her to decide. Mei Yan is torn about whether to open it, but thinking about her recent pregnancy test, for the child's sake, she chooses to trust Biao. Meanwhile, Xiuai takes Jishuan to see a reputable therapist and analyzes the medication he takes, only to find it contains large amounts of hallucinogens. Jishuan cannot believe it. The scenes seen during self-hypnosis were all fake. Xiuai hugged him softly to comfort him, remarking how the rich live in a world full of crises. After years of marriage, Mei Yan is finally pregnant. The servant presented a gift box to Xiuai. It turned out to be her early birthday gift for herself from last year. The president suggested having a party tonight to celebrate. Xiuai went to her room and opened it. Inside were a red and a white dress, along with a key. Biao, in front of the screen, witnessed this scene, recalling the promise he made with Xiuai. But it seems that promise is now void. In high spirits, Mei Yan went on a shopping spree. She accidentally bumped into an employee on her way out. She unexpectedly saw Jishu's resume. She learned that this employee had passed away. She began to doubt Xiuai's previous memory loss. Meanwhile, Xiuai arrived at a villa with the keys. Inside, he unexpectedly saw a portrait of Biao. She also found a box behind the portrait. It contained a photo of the two and a notebook. From it, she learned Biao's final plan was to kill Zixuan, to let the real Xiuai inherit all of Zixuan's wealth. The party proceeded as scheduled in the evening. As they lit the candles, the butler suggested singing the birthday song. Unexpectedly, the whole place fell silent. Xiuai casually prepared to blow out the candles. Zixuan, however, took the lead in singing. The president sighed. It was the first time hearing his son sing. Xiuai's father suggested that she play a piece as a gesture of thanks. Biao immediately became nervous upon hearing this. Xiuai moved her fingers. A beautiful melody emerged. It turned out she often practiced on the mall's piano while working as a salesperson. At the end of the piece, she received applause from the audience. Zixuan returned to the room and gave Xiuai a valuable diamond ring. It's said to be a replacement for the ring dropped in the water last time. At this moment, they both seem to forget they are contract husband and wife. On the other side, Biao arrives at the real Xiuai's grave. He places their necklaces as engagement down. Recalling their sweet past together, tears come to his eyes. Little did he know, Mei Yan was secretly watching. At this moment, she finally confirms their relationship. She had her suspicions before, so on the day of the incident, she had the servant drug the red wine. This caused Xiuai to fall into the pool. She realized her inaction was caught on camera, so she found someone to delete the video. She thought eliminating Xiuai would win Biao back. But at the hospital, she discovered she was never pregnant. Unbeknownst to her, Biao had orchestrated this to keep her calm. She confronted Biao with their photo. She said she knew Xiuai's true identity. Then, she went to find the guard who deleted the video. After confirming there were no backups left, he was given some money to leave quietly. The meeting was secretly recorded by Biao's men. When the men found the security to understand the situation, he nervously took off running, only to be knocked unconscious by a car. The security guard told Biao what happened when he woke up. He also handed over the original surveillance footage. When Biao saw the real Xiuai struggling in the water, he knelt by the pool, heartbroken and in tears. And Mei Yan happened to see this scene upon returning. Seeing a photo of the real Xiuai hidden in his wallet, she angrily tore it up. The father saw his deceased daughter standing before him, but Jiha wouldn't let him approach to recognize her. As they were leaving, the father accidentally fell again. Seeing this, Xiuai hid her identity and had to treat her father as a stranger to help him up. Watching her father's disappointed figure made Xiuai feel extremely heartbroken. Little do they know, Mei Yan deliberately arranged their meeting. She wants to prove to Zixuan that Xiuai can forsake family for money. He suggested investigating his wife's identity. However, Zixuan expressed his trust in Xiuai. He told his sister not to meddle. But Mei Yan couldn't accept her brother being deceived. She placed Xiuai's fingerprint results in Zixuan's bag. He was shocked when he saw the report. Although he had doubts in his heart, he still chose to believe in his wife. But reality is often cruel and hard to accept. Xiuai noticed that Zixuan hadn't come home late at night. She tried calling but couldn't get through. She worried that Biao might have acted, so she asked him if he knew where Zixuan was. Fortunately, Zixuan had someone tell them he had gone to work. This eased their worries. The servant handed a package to the president. Inside was a letter and a USB drive. The president played the video on the USB drive. It turns out to be the surveillance footage of Mei Yan pushing Xiuai into the pool. The letter demanded the chairman transfer 50% of the company's shares and management rights to Zixuan, and that he should be announced as the heir at the upcoming charity event. Otherwise, the video will be made public. The chairman pondered for a long time. He decided to arrange things according to the mysterious person's demands. This made the cunning stepmother extremely angry. Upon learning this, Xiuai recalled what was written in her notes. It stated that the day Zixu becomes the heir would be his death date. So, she went to find Zixuan, revealed her true identity, and told him to give up the inheritance of the company. Otherwise, there will be danger. But the angry Zixuan wouldn't listen at all. He just kicked Xiuai out. So she went to a lawyer to seek a divorce, but the lawyer said it couldn't be done in a day. Xiuai had to go to her counselor father, hoping he could stop her father-in-law from giving the company to Zixuan. The charity gala went ahead as planned. Just as the chairman was about to announce the heir, Xiuai's father appeared just in time. After a conversation between the two, the chairman, back on stage, immediately changed his mind. He said he wouldn't hand over the company until his son was recognized. Biao looked furious after hearing this. Moreover, Xiuai plans to donate half of her shares to society. The aim is to make Biao give up on her wealth. At that moment, the lamp above suddenly burst into flames. Seeing this, Zixuan rushed up from the audience. In a critical moment, he grabbed Xiuai, and averted a tragedy. To protect Jishuan, Shuai had to file for divorce first. But Jishuan said that if they divorced, his situation would only get worse. He would have no leverage to gain the shareholders' approval. For both their interests, he disagreed with the divorce. Shuai had to bring up the divorce with Jishuan at the dinner table. When her father-in-law asked for the reason, Shuai unexpectedly said it was because of Biao. Biao and Shuai had once been lovers, and now they had to live under the same roof. This made Shuai feel very hurt. The father-in-law warned Biao to treat his daughter well. Otherwise, he would be kicked out of the house. But the mother-in-law was not as easygoing. She would scold and hit Biao. Jishuan saw that things had escalated. In anger, he decided to file for divorce the next day. But at the Civil Affairs Bureau, he was told he needed an appointment. He needed to wait a month for the cooling-off period. When the counselor asked them about their views on each other, they speak well of each other. It makes the doctor think they are here to show off their love. On the other side, Biao sent another anonymous letter threatening his father-in-law. In the end, he successfully transferred all the shares to Jishuan. He quickly gathered business elites for a hunting party. Naturally, Jishuan, wanting to expand his connections, attended as well. To prevent Shuai from ruining his plans, Biao bribed the prosecutor to investigate Shuai for corruption. She suspects that Jishuan might be in danger, so she requested to call and try to send them away. Seeing no one coming to help and being locked inside, Shuai had to pretend to faint on the ground. Then, when preparing to put her on the ambulance, Shuai got up and jumped off the stretcher to run outside. She got into the pre-arranged car and drove away. She rushed all the way to the hunting ground. Ignoring her own safety, she rushed into the woods to find Jishuan. At that moment, Jishuan was being followed by a hunter. Just as he was about to strike, he heard the siren of a police car. Startled, he fled in panic. But Biao was not going to miss this chance. He aimed at Jishuan's chest. He pulled the trigger without hesitation. Suddenly, a figure lunged at Jishuan. He was shot in the arm and collapsed to the ground. Biao saw a large group of police rushing down the hill. He had to give up the idea of shooting again. When Jishuan woke up, he was already in the hospital. Fortunately, it was just a scrape on his arm, nothing serious. Biao said the hunter who missed had turned himself in. He explained that this kind of accident had happened more than once. Only Mei Yan apologized out of guilt. It turned out she saw her husband was the one who shot her brother. She then questioned her husband about why he did that. Biao stubbornly claimed he was just passing by. After leaving the hospital, Jishuan learned that Shuai had saved her. She understood that the divorce was for his protection, but he said he couldn't live without Jishuo. It was also the first time Jishuan called her by her real name. This way, the two of them reconciled. Shuai plans to expose Biao's crimes, but Mei Yan asks her for some time. She will persuade Biao to turn himself in. Then Mei Yan sees the Jishuo family happily together. She thinks her own family is falling apart because of her. A plan for revenge rises in her heart. Shuai finds the hunter who is turning himself in. She hopes he will name his mastermind, but the hunter claims it was just his mistake. He tells Shuai not to bother him again. He impatiently slammed the door after speaking. Shuai had to leave her business card for him to think it over. Unexpectedly, there was no news for several days. Just when she thought there was no hope, the hunter suddenly called Shuai, asking to meet. He arrived injured, begging Shuai to save him. It turned out that just moments ago, Mei Yan found the gang leader, tied him up and beat him. She warned the hunter that if he confessed to taking the blame for someone, he would be buried alive. The hunter feared that Biao and his gang would silence him. So he found Shuai and want her help. But there's no evidence of Biao ordering him to kill. Shuai had a sudden idea. She suggested finding Biao again, claiming his wife is seriously ill and needs treatment. He wanted Biao to lend him more money, otherwise, he would reveal the truth. His men, seeing his defiance, prepared to kill, but Biao stopped them, seeing it was for his sick wife. He gave him some money again. He warned the hunter that he would kill him next time. Unbeknownst to them, their conversation was recorded. This evidence is enough to send Biao to prison. Just as Jishuan was about to submit the evidence to the police, he received a call from Biao. He heard the recording of Jishuo agreeing to pretend to be a rich girl. Biao asked if he would send Jishuo to prison as well. Jishuan had no choice but to give up. Unaware, Shuai asked if he reported it to the police. Jishuan lied, saying the evidence was insufficient. He needed to find another opportunity. Meanwhile, Mei Yan asked the gang leader to investigate Jishuo's family. She learned that Jishio's mother urgently needed a liver transplant. The only suitable brother for the donation was allergic to peanuts. So she took the chance to arrange a meeting with her brother. I added peanut powder to his coffee in advance. The next day, just before the surgery, Jishio's mother suddenly worsened. Immediate surgery was necessary. At that moment, Jiha had an allergic reaction and his body swelled up. The doctor said surgery couldn't be performed in this condition. This could potentially cost both of them their lives. The father immediately called his daughter Jishio. He told her to come to the hospital right away. Jishio planned to surprise her mother after the surgery. She wanted to introduce her husband to her mother, but when she arrived at the hospital, her mother had already lost her breath. In the end, she never saw her daughter. Jishio felt immense guilt. She took out the gold ring she had prepared for her mother and put it on her. After burying her mother, she asked her brother why he suddenly had an allergic reaction that day. Did he encounter anyone suspicious? Her brother then said that Mei Yan had approached him before the surgery. Jishio didn't expect Mei Yan to collude with Biao. She confronted her when getting home. Mei Yan admitted she looked for her brother, but she denied doing anything wrong. The two had an argument over this. Mei Yan forcefully shook off Jishio's hand. Jishio lost her balance and fell toward the pool. Fortunately, Mei Yan caught her just in time. Zixuan happened to witness the scene. Suddenly, the day Xiuai had the accident flashed in her mind. She recalled her sister watching Xiuai fall into the pool without helping. Zixuan suddenly fainted. Xiuai asked Biao to kill her, claiming it was for a fresh start. She promised to transfer her shares to Biao. Unbeknownst to him, Xiuai aimed to gather evidence against Biao. Then Biao suggested staging an accidental fire. He provided Xiuai with fake identity documents, and he planned to prepare a corpse to deceive everyone. However, Biao had no intention of letting her go. He instructed his men to get the sleeping drug ready. The next day, they went to the villa in the countryside to relax. Jishuan took the opportunity to ask his brother-in-law why he wanted to kill him. Biao continued to play the fool. He threw the question to Mei Yan. Unexpectedly, his sister helped him explain. Even knowing the truth, she chose to ignore it. Jishuan called his sister for a private talk. He said he remembered the truth about Xiuai falling into the water that day, but Mei Yan refused to admit it. Panicked, she chose to flee. Jishuan couldn't see her sister, but he was knocked out by Biao's henchmen. On the other side, Xiuai suddenly fainted. It turned out Biao's men had drugged her drink. Biao carried her into the room. Then he ordered his men to douse the room in gasoline. He set the villa on fire and left. Even worse, Mei Yan learned about the police and reporters Xiuai arranged and sent someone to stop them. At this moment, Jishuan was thrown on a broken boat in the river. I found the villa on fire, but I was too afraid of the water to approach. In the end, he overcame his fear and swam quickly to the shore for Xiuai. He rushed into the villa and brought the unconscious Xiuai out. Overexerted himself and fainted. At this moment, Biao ordered his men to throw Xiuai into the lake. They framed Jishuan for it. The next day, the news reported he was suspected of killing his wife. At this time, Xiuai woke up in the hospital. She secretly escaped in the middle of the night. At that moment, two thugs forcibly put her in a car. Take her to an abandoned warehouse. Mei Yan is waiting for her there. She didn't want Biao to continue killing. She secretly had the gang leader save Xiuai. She hopes Xiuai can live abroad with a new identity, and promises to send Jishuan and her family over. After Mei Yan left, Xiuai intended to bribe the gang leader, but he accidentally revealed Jishuan's perilous situation. Xiuai seized the opportunity to grab the phone and ran. Hiding in the corner, I called Jishuan for help. At that moment, Jishuan was being taken away by the police for questioning. After receiving Xiuai's call, he suddenly broke free and drove away. He had his secretary trace Xiuai's phone location, soon arrived nearby to search. He finally spotted Xiuai by the roadside. He got out and ran over to hug him tightly. After this narrow escape, Xiuai decided to surrender and expose Biao's crimes. Jishuan can only respect her decision. So a press conference was held. Xiuai revealed her true identity. She presented evidence of Biao's crimes. In the end, Biao was taken away by the police. At the same time, Xiuai faced her punishment. 4 years passed in the blink of an eye. Jishio could finally be openly with Jishuan. They built a happy family.